Welcome back. Let's have a look at our final topic for this week. And it's all about demand loans and working those out and keeping track of the simple interest along the way as different things happen throughout the life of a loan. The next topic we want to cover with you is demand loans. Now, typically, uh, most loans are a demand loan, and that means that the person who lent out the money has the right to demand repayment anytime they want, but the borrower also has a right to repay anytime they want. We see a couple different versions of these. A revolving loan is very common. You can think of a small business or even a person with a line of credit or an operating loan. Well, they can borrow and repay money anytime they need to, up to a certain limit, but as they need to help run their business or manage their finances. And so that would be a very common application. The other ones we see are fixed payment loans where there's a payment already determined and that happens on a regular basis. Equipment loans often happen that way and that sort of thing. We're going to focus in on the first one for now. The fixed payment ones, they are covered in the chapter, but we're going to ignore them and come back to them later on after we've learned more about compound interest and everything, and we'll cover those in more depth later. So for now, when you're doing your homework, the key one to focus on is this revolving loan part. That's what we want to cover for now. Let's have a look at an example. On March the 20th, Hank's Cycle Shop received an initial advance of $10,000 on its revolving demand loan. Now, on the 15th of each month, interest is calculated and deducted from Hank's bank account. The floating rate of interest started at 9.75%, and it dropped to 9.5 on April the 9th, and on April the 19th, more stuff happened. Hank borrowed another $10,000 on his line of credit. What interest was charged to the bank account altogether on April the 15th and then again on May the 15th? Well, to work these out, a good table can be handy, right? Because we want to be able to fill in all these amounts as we go and keep track of them. So that's what I'm going to use. I set up a little table and I've got the time frame and the number of days that represents. The next column over is the principal amount, then the rate, and then finally the interest amount. And really to calculate that, you'll see I'm just going to be using I equals PRT. We've got P over here, we've got R, and we can get T when we get the number of days, can't we? So the calculations go right back to the very basic stuff we learned, but we're putting it together in a more complicated question by breaking it into steps. And why do I have to break it into steps or different lines? Well, I can only do one calculation at a time for any particular value of P or R, and so I have to break it up. So let's have a look. For the time interval, March the 20th, to April the 5th, if I go to my calculator and I put those in as my 2 days, I get 16 days between those dates. And if we look at the question, Hank had initially borrowed $10,000 and the rate was 0.0975, or if you put it in as a percent, 9.75%. The interest amount then, well, to calculate that, we're just going to use PRT. That would be 10,000 times 0.0975 times 16 over 365. That works out to 42.74. Now, Hank doesn't have to pay this money yet. Remember, it says he pays his interest on the 15th of each month. We're not at the 15th yet. Nor does that $42 get added to the principal. We're not compounding. There's no interest being earned on interest. So we're just really keeping track of it over on the right here, but we're not going to do anything with it yet. Now we come along and we have April the 5th up to April the 15th. That's when a payment is due, isn't it? An interest payment. That's 10 days. You still just borrowed $10,000, but the rate is changed to 9.5% for that period of time. So notice the principal, I didn't add any interest in along the way. I don't want to compound. It's just simple interest. If I go and work that out using I equals PRT, I get 2603 for that amount. And now I can say, okay, let's total that because I've come to an interest payment time. And so now I do have to add up the two amounts so far to see how much interest would be paid to the bank. So we kept track of them sort of on the side. Now it's time to pay. We'll add them up and make a payment. Now we're going to assume that payment comes from a different bank account, not the line of credit bank account, so that we don't have to change our principal or anything like that. All right, let's keep going with the question because stuff kept happening, didn't it? We went from April the 15th all the way up to the 19th. Well, I shouldn't say all the way, for 4 days, really. Not very long. And then it still owed $10,000 at that rate of 9.5%. So that those numbers didn't change. You know, we had to just make a break because a payment happened. Well, there's another $10.41 owing at that point. And then April the 19th, Hank borrowed more money, didn't he? And nothing else happened all the way up to the next interest payment day. So that's 26 days. He now owes $20,000 to the bank. The rate's still 9.5%. So there's a big whopping $135.34 interest amount for that period of time. Well, now we come along to the May 15th interest payment time, and we're going to add up those two outstanding amounts to get $145.75. So Hank's going to have to now pay the bank $145 on May the 15th, and he had originally paid them $68 back on April the 15th. So those are his two interest payments. That's it for this chapter. I know it keeps going, but we're going to stop here at the end of the Hank Cycle Shop example, 7.4a in your book. And you can read the rest if you like of the chapter, have a look at you know, the different demand loan schedules, but we're going to come back and do those, I think, in a better way when we get to some of the later chapters. We'll use compound interest for them then. There's also section 7.5. Again, I'm not going to cover that, but it does talk about student loans. So if you have a loan, you may be curious at least to read about it and learn what some of the rules are and how those work. And that rounds out the chapter. So that's it for us. Now, success strategies again. Take your time reading the questions. It's always a good thing to do. Write down everything that's given to you in the question as well as the unknown. Timelines are a great way to write things down and organize the longer questions. Use all your decimals during your calculations and round when you get to the final answer. And that's key. Practice, practice, practice. I can't sort of reiterate that enough. The more you practice, the better this is going to get. So I really encourage you to get out there and practice a lot. Have some fun with it. If I can be of any help this week, get a hold of me. Give me a shout and I'll help you out. Or if you're still struggling with things from last week and you need a bit of help, let's get you unstuck as quick as we can so that you can keep going, not feel like it's sort of overwhelming and bearing down on you. All right. I hope it's all working well so far, and I'll see you again next time.